Having new camera gear is always fun and exciting, but most of the time, a lot of photographers buy gear that they don't really need and waste a lot of money doing so. So in this video, we're going to be talking about how you can save a little bit of money and go through a solid checklist in determining whether you need new camera gear or not. So stay tuned and let's jump right in. What's up, y'all? It's Project Photography back with another video, and today camera companies every so often release new camera gear to get new people excited about their photography equipment, such as lenses and cameras and so on. And it's really exciting as photographers to go and look at this new piece of gear and think, wow, I could use this for my photography kit. But a lot of the time, I feel like a lot of photographers waste a ton of money buying gear that they don't need and would otherwise be able to use that money on things like photography trips to actually go out there and shoot more photography to improve their skills and so on. So I feel like in the photography community, having gear is always something that a lot of folks fantasize about, but isn't something that would be necessarily beneficial to your photography. So when I'm considering gear to buy in my purchase decisions, I always run through 3 questions that I answer before actually determining whether to buy a piece of gear or not. First one I ask is, what are my needs as a photographer? The second one I ask is, does your camera that you currently have meet those needs? And the last one is, will the new camera meet the needs your current camera currently doesn't meet? And I ask these questions to determine whether or not a new piece of gear is A, even warranted, and B, whether that piece of gear is right for me. And I think it's a really good checklist to dial in on your needs as a photographer and what is the most beneficial gear to buy for you. So let's jump right into the first one, and what are my needs as a photographer? The reason why we really want to ask this question and dial in on this is because when we're buying pieces of gear, we want to understand our needs so that we can have a piece of gear that correlates very much directly to those needs. And the way you find your needs is understanding A, the niche of photography that you're doing and what you need to accomplish that photography. It sounds very simple, but let's run through an example like the one I have right here. And this is for me and my own landscape photography. So my needs for my landscape photography are, I need detailed images edge to edge. I need plenty of flexibility with editing. I need great color science. I need a lightweight camera body / lens and whatnot. I need an easy focusing experience, ability to see the camera screen, and a long shutter speed. And the way I actually determine, this is my needs that I have is because when I'm actually go out there doing landscape photography, I kind of understand and know what I need to accomplish the landscapes at hand. I also understand that the reason why I'm actually printing out these photos is because I want to be able to look at them on the wall, and for me to have incredibly sharp images, I want to be able to have the most detailed images possible so that when I put them on the wall, they look absolutely stunning. And the other sort of aspects for me, my needs for as a landscape photographer is me actually out there shooting and what makes that photography experience a lot easier. And for me, having longer shutter speeds actually help me with my photography, because when I'm out there shooting, I don't want to have to be using a timer and using the time functionality on my Nikon Z6 to determine, okay, this is the right amount of time for this exposure. Having something like a 15-second shutter speed would actually be really beneficial for my needs. So a lot of these other needs are things that really help me in my landscape photography experience overall, help me to actually get the photos that I need, and really help me produce a greatest final image that I can possible. And when you're actually doing this exercise, you don't have to just do one niche. I would consider every aspect of your photography experience that you do, all the niches that you have, all the videos, all the photos you're gonna shoot, and what is needed to actually create those final images and products. And then also when you're dialing in on this, understand the features that you would need as well, because those directly correlate to your needs as well. So now let's jump into if your camera meets your needs that you have currently. So the great thing about photography is that our cameras do not degrade very much over time. For the most part, they don't have to be replaced every like 10 or so years. It's nice to replace it every so often, but it's not absolutely necessary. It's not like a phone, it's not like a tablet, it's not like a laptop. So having a camera for a long time can actually be really beneficial in saving you a lot of money. But we have to assess what our needs are over time, of course, and we have to assess whether the camera that we have actually is able to still fulfill those needs or not, because technology improves, the niches of photography that we're in improve, and they just change over time. So nothing is ever stagnant. So what I like to do in assessing whether or not my camera actually meets the needs that I have is to rank each of my needs and how my camera fits those needs best on a scale of 1 through 10. 1, of course, being that it does not fit those needs at all, and 10 being that it fits those needs absolutely perfectly. So let's run through my Nikon Z6 and my needs as a landscape photographer. First of all, we talked about detailed images edge to edge. For me, that's a 7 out of 10. Plenty of flexibility with editing, that's also a 7 out of 10. Great color science for me is a 9 out of 10. Lightweightness is a 9 out of 10. Easy focusing experience is a 7.5 out of 10. Ability to see the camera screen is a 6 out of 10. And long shutter speed is a 4 out of 10. So as you can see from this list, I feel like the Nikon Z6 actually does a very good job accomplishing most of my needs. For me, the biggest sort of gaps in what I do for my landscape photography and what the Nikon Z6 I feel like doesn't accomplish extremely well is the longer shutter speeds, as well as being able to see in the camera screen. It could improve on detailed images, edge to edge, along with the flexibility in editing, but those are actually not too bad. I feel like Nikon Z6 does a great job with that, but I do feel like the Nikon Z6 excels at having great color science as well as being lightweight. And those are huge for me as a landscape photographer because I want to be hiking these long hikes and be able to carry my camera for a long time, have all the lenses that I need, and not to feel like I'm putting a ton of strain on my body. And from there, we can discuss the next step, which is, will the new camera meet the needs your current camera currently does not meet? And for me, this is absolutely huge. At this point, you can figure out what is the best camera out there on the market that's within your ecosystem to determine if this camera will fit the needs that your previous camera does not currently fit. And for me, I think the best camera for me to look at right now would be something like the Nikon Z6 II. We have incredible specs such as 45 megapixels. We have incredible dynamic range. I know they have dual card slots. I know the camera has a 15-minute shutter, which is absolutely crucial for getting those long landscape exposures. So because I feel like the Nikon Z7 II really does beat the original Nikon Z6 in those categories, we can kind of determine, okay, what is the value that we're gonna put that at? Because the Nikon Z7 II is like about $1,300 more expensive than the Z6. The Z7 II on eBay used goes for about $2,400. Whereas the Nikon Z6 original goes for about $1,100. So now it's up to you to determine whether that these features that you want, whether the camera fulfills your needs this much, is actually worth that price increase, because most of the time the gear that we're gonna be looking at is definitely more expensive. It's something you really need to consider because price is always a factor when it comes to actually picking out gear that you want for your own photography. And for me, I would kind of say no, because there's only really 3 main features that I feel like would be above the Nikon Z6, but when it comes to actually the megapixel count, the dynamic range, I do feel like the Z6 is very sufficient in those categories, and the long shutter speed isn't necessarily a huge need of mine. I do feel like if I had a 15-minute shutter speed, it would really make my workflow a lot easier, but it's not absolutely necessary. So for me, upgrading to the Nikon Z7 II will be more of a luxury than an actual need. And that's something that you have to figure out with your cameras, whether it's gonna be more of like a luxury thing or is an absolute desired need that you really feel like would increase your workflow, help you work a lot better, and make your overall photography experience a lot easier. And now, of course, buying camera gear is not cheap at all. And this model right here, I was just talking about my landscape photography, but I know a lot of you do more than just landscape photography. Of course, we have street photography, we have people doing video, we have folks doing portrait photography, event photography, and so on. So you really need to determine what your needs are as a photographer. Consider the gear that you have, and finally determine whether a new piece of gear would actually help you in your workflow, make the experience a lot easier, and actually help you create better images. At the end of the day, that's exactly what we're trying to do as photographers. And if you don't feel like you need a new piece of gear, don't feel forced to buy it, because you can take that money, use it to actually buy and experience the world in ways that you haven't been able to do before. You can take that money, go on a trip to, let's just say, some national park or something. You can go do more photography with that type of money. Don't feel like you have to spend it on more gear, because at the end of the day, actually using that money to go out on trips, go out on experiences and experience the world is what's gonna make you a better photographer. So I hope that really helps when it comes to actually deciding whether you wanna buy a new piece of gear or not. That's kind of like the checklist that I go between to determine whether or not a new piece of gear would best warrant my situation, upgrading from whatever I have. So let me know what you guys think about this down in the comment section down below. What is a new piece of gear that you've been looking at and you are considering for your own photography? Anyways, guys, thank you so much for experiencing the world with me today. Rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.